So in session one we're going to look at due diligence from a risk perspective. The whole point of doing due diligence, carrying it out properly, is primarily it's to keep you safe. So from our point of view as developers, we want to ensure that the capital that we invest in projects and the money that we borrow is as safe as we can make it before we actually embark upon a process. So this series is on how we do that, the kind of things that we look out for. But again, just as a broad overview, your capital is precious, our capital is precious. We try really hard to ensure that keeping it safe is the most important thing. There's no point in having fantastic potential returns, because until such times as they're done, potential is all they ever are. So the flip side of potential returns, generally speaking, is potential risks. And so this little video series is how we actually go about mitigating them. I'm going to break them down into 4 categories for you. First one we're going to cover is legal risk. Then we're going to move on to construction risk. We're then going to move on to financial risk. And then finally we're going to cover market and economic cycles. So I hope you find this a lot interesting. So, first one we're going to look at is legal risk. Legal risk, when we look at it, is all to do with largely 2 elements of it. One, who are you contracting with, and what is the thing that you're about to acquire. And you need to make sure that in each of these cases, all that you need to know is known. You need to know there are no hidden burdens or covenants on the title. And so we do that by engaging with a law firm. I've been using them for about 15 years. Same law firm. And what they do is they carry out a report on title for us. So in that, they basically take all the documents that the selling party produces, checks them against land registry, but then also gives us a report. So an interpretation of what the legalese actually means. Do we have any risks? And if we have any risks, we want to know about them very early in the process, so that we can either negotiate those risks away or make the seller pay for them. So that's one of the really important parts when it comes to understanding this. Burdens on title could be from obscure. We bought a site recently where one of the titles was a shaded part of the title plan that was designed to be for the grazing of 2 sheep for all time, and it should have a fence around it for all time going forward. Now that is unlikely to be picked up by anybody as an issue, but to be honest, we would always take out title insurance in any conditions where we've got some highlighted to us, which is not expensive, but it's there to actually protect. So that part is really important. So looking at it from that point of view, in terms of what you're buying, the title is the primary document and starts the due diligence process. The other things that we'll look at in that process are obviously things like what is underneath the ground, because that's really important in terms of services particularly. So this is not the construction element, this is still very much looking at the land or the building that we're buying. And so the way we do that is we'd simply do a utilities search. And those searches would be extended not only to utilities but also to other local authority searches that our solicitor would order up for us, so that we've got a really clear picture of everything that's going on to do with that title and that plot of land. So that's a really important part of the title part. The other part is the seller. So does the seller, and you wouldn't believe how often you find out that this isn't the case, does the seller have a clear and marketable title? So in other words, are they able to sell you the thing that they are purporting to sell? Do they actually own it properly? Are there any mortgages, charges, other things that would prevent them from selling it? So again, as part of the due diligence process, we cover some looking at the individual or the company that's selling it, making sure they have the right to sell it, and also then looking at the title documents and covering off all the things that we need to cover in that. So, quick summary: title due diligence, individual or company due diligence, how we look at that, making sure that if we need insurance in place that we've got it there, making sure that we understand what is under the ground or in the vicinity of the building, and making sure there are no onerous things that are going to be happening that will materially affect the value of the investment. There's not going to be any rail link or compulsory purchase or anything like that. So all these searches are all done in advance of purchase. So we take it to the point where we are ready to go. When we are in a position to purchase, then we know that we're not going to come up with any surprises. So that's the first one. That's legal due diligence.